Continuing with Book 3, Chapter 22, Verse 18. Nobody believes that he has a spiritual body, even at his deathbed. But everyone thinks a dying man is dead with his body forever. This body, however, neither dies nor is it alive at any time. Both life and death, in all respects, are mere appearances of aerial dreams and desires. The life and death of beings are here below are as false as the appearance and disappearance of people in imagination or dolls in play or puppet show. Leela said, "O Goddess, the pure knowledge that you have given me has fallen on my ears. Act like a healing balm to the pain caused by phenomenon. Now tell me the name and nature of the practice for spiritualization. How is it to be perfected? And what is the end of such perfection?" The goddess replied, "Whatever a man attempts to do here at any time, he can hardly ever complete it without painful practice to the utmost of his power. The wise say that practice consists in the association of one thing with another, and in understanding it thoroughly and in devoting oneself solely to its object. Great souls become successful in this world who are disgusted with the world and are moderate in their enjoyments and desires. They do not think about seeking what they lack. Those great minds are said to be best trained, who are graced with liberal views, are delighted with the relish of unconcern with the world, and are raptured with streams of heavenly joy. Again, they are called the best practiced in divine knowledge, who, by the light of reasoning and scripture, are employed preaching the absolute non-existence of any distinction between the knower and what is known in the world. What some call practical knowledge is knowing that nothing was produced in the beginning, and nothing that is visible, such as this world or one's self, is true at any time. The effect of practicing meditation is a strong tendency of the soul towards the Spirit of God, which results from an understanding of the non-existence of the physical world and the subsistence of passions. But mere knowledge of the non-existence of the world without subduing passions is known as knowledge without practice, and is of no value to the possessor. Consciousness of the non-existence of the world is the true knowledge of the knowable. The practice of meditation makes this knowledge a habit in the mind and leads one to his final extinction, nirvana. The practice of meditation repairs the mind, and awakens the intelligence, which lay dormant in the dark night of this world. Consciousness then sheds its cooling showers of reason, like dewdrops in the frosty night of autumn. Valmiki speaking. As the sage was lecturing in this manner, the day departed for its evening service and led the assembled train to their evening prayers. After rising beams of the sun dispelled the darkness of night, they met again with mutual greetings. There are a couple of points that we should look at. One is right at the beginning of this section, verse 18, nobody believes he has a spiritual body, even at his deathbed. But everyone thinks a dying man is dead with his body forever. Well, fortunately, we have this understanding of the koshas, the understanding that we're not this body. And when this body dies, we continue, if we're successful in achieving Jivan Mukti, liberation, while the body is still alive, then we don't have to have another birth. But if we're not successful, we come back and try again. And this trying is centered around meditation. Just having knowledge of the world, the universe, knowledge that we have subtle bodies is not enough. We need the experience. And during meditation, this is where the experience comes to us. Without the experience, we do not subdue our passions. Now, the passions are the expressions of our karmic traces. So during meditation, we are balancing karmic traces with this marvelous technique of dharana and the mantra. So we're putting our knowledge into practice when we do the meditation. Moving on to chapter 23. Saraswati and Leela meditate and begin astral travel. Vashishta said, after this conversation with goddess Saraswati and the excellent Leela on that night, the two of them found Leela's family and attendants fast asleep in the inner apartment. Saraswati and Leela entered the shrine that was closely shut on all sides by latches fastened to the doors and windows, and which was perfumed with the fragrance of heaps of flowers. They sat beside the corpse decorated with fresh flowers and garments. Their faces shone like the fair moon and brightened the place. They stood motionless on the spot, as if they were sculptures engraved on marble columns or pictures drawn upon the wall. They shook off all their thoughts and cares and became as withdrawn as the faded blossoms of the lotus at the end of the day, when their fragrance has fled. They remained still, calm and quiet, without any motion of their limbs, like a sheet of clouds hanging on the mountain top in the calm of autumn. They continued in fixed attention without any external sensation, like some lonely vines shriveled for lack of moisture in samadhi meditation. They were fully impressed with the disbelief of their own existence and that of other things in the world. They were completely absorbed in the thought of an absolute privation of everything at large. They lost memory of the phantom of the phenomenal world, which is as unreal as the horn of a hare. They had no existence in the beginning. Is still non-existent at the present. And what appears existent is as non-existent as water in a mirage. The two ladies became as quiet and inert nature herself, and still as the sky before the stars rolled about in its ample sphere. Then they began to move with their own bodies. The goddess of wisdom in her form of intelligence, and the queen in her intellectual and meditative mood. With their new bodies, they rose as high as the width of a hand above the ground. Then, taking the forms of empty consciousness, they began to rise in the sky. Then the two ladies, their playful open eyes, by their nature of intellectual knowledge, ascended to the higher region of the sky. Here we've been given some very practical techniques for astral travel. One of the most important is motionlessness. In order to transcend and use any of the subtle bodies, in order to transcend the physical body so that we can use any of the subtle bodies, the physical body has to literally go to sleep. And when the physical body goes to sleep, what happens? Maybe you've experienced this. Literally, there are two nervous systems, sympathetic and autonomic. The sympathetic nervous system controls the actions of the muscles, the skeletal muscles. That animates the body. We can move around, raise our hand, speak. And so when we put the body to sleep, sympathetic nervous system goes to sleep. Now that sounds easy enough. We do it every night, we go to sleep. But do we do it during our meditation? It is possible if we don't move the physical body for a period of time while we are transcending. The physical body will then go to sleep. Now, sitting up in meditation, this is a bit of a challenge because it requires muscle tone to keep the body sitting erect. If we're able to sit in the Padma Asana, that is a great benefit in keeping the body in an erect, seated position. Because in the Padma Asana, the body can be supported not with skeletal muscles, but with prana. Prana flows through the physical body in 72,000 nadis. If we're sitting in Padma Asana, the nadis that are all open and receiving the prana from the prana body. And if we put the sympathetic nervous system asleep and we transcend to manomaya kosha, and we leave the prana body tightly integrated with the physical body, then the discovery is we don't need the muscles of the physical body to sit up. The physical body is supported by the prana body. Now, if we transcend to pranamaya kosha and we feel the looseness of the prana body and the physical body, we might be tempted to use the prana body as an independent vehicle. That's a short-sighted approach. While it will give us some ability to explore our subtle senses on the level of the pranamaya kosha, and it will give us this ability to explore the astral world. It does deprive the physical body of the prana energy that it needs to remain seated, erect, effortlessly. So then the physical body slumps over. And when the physical body slumps over, deprived of the prana energy, a good share of it, we're called back into the physical body very quickly, which stops our exploration of the astral world. But if we hold on to this integration of physical and prana body in the Padma Asana and resist the urge to explore with the prana body, then we can transcend yet again. And when we make that transcendence to manomaya kosha, we'll find our physical body is effortlessly supported by the pranamaya kosha. Then we can really begin a wonderful exploration of the celestial realms. Now, in this section, it's titled Astral Travel. But I believe what they are doing is they're actually traveling in the lower celestial realm. Leaving their prana body and physical body in the physical realm. See, the prana body is not supposed to be separate from the physical body. That only happens in all of the people actually during Kali Yuga. In the previous yugas, many people were more tightly integrated, their prana body, physical body. And we know this from their diet. When prana body and physical body are totally integrated, then physical body does not need food, doesn't need water, and it doesn't need air, doesn't need to breathe. It only needs to breathe if it wants to use its vocal cords to make a sound. Then it needs some air because it needs to move the air, and that requires the use of muscles and the energy and the movement of air in the lungs. So at that stage is the only time necessary to take a breath to power the vocal cord. Communication is done in Satyuga in the mind, from mind to mind, for the most part. And transportation is teleportation, for the most part. Doesn't make too much sense to teleport from one side of a room to the other. So in that sense, the physical body would be taken in levitation, but to go somewhere more distant in the physical realm, teleportation is used. But as soon as we leave this realm of Satyuga, then there's a fracturing of the connection between prana body and physical body. Physical body then needs to consume food and water and air in order to maintain itself. But not as much and as dense as food as is necessary now in Kali Yuga. But as the yugas progress, then the density of the food progresses until we reach the state of Kali Yuga where we are now, and barely there's any integration of physical and prana body at all. So our aim is reversing that. Which is how we, or the reason why we practice these various techniques of levitation to create a tight integration of prana body and physical body. And it creates also this sense of not needing, more than a sense, the reality of not needing to eat food. Now it says that they begin to move in their own bodies, the god of wisdom's in her form of intelligence, and the queen in her intellectual and meditative mood. And then he took the form of empty consciousness. And ascended to the higher region of the sky, of the nature of their intellectual knowledge. So they're actually moving not in their prana body, but in their manomaya kosha or vijnanamaya kosha. They flew higher and higher by force of their intellect and arrived in a region stretching millions of miles in length. The pair in their ethereal forms looked around, according to their nature, in search of some visible objects, but finding no other figure except their own, they became much more attached to each other by their mutual affection. Chapter 24, Description of the Astral Journey. Vashishta continued. Thus ascending higher and higher, and by degrees reaching the highest station, they continued viewing the heaven with their hands clasped together. They saw a vast expanse, like a wide, extended universal ocean, deep and translucent within, but soft with ethereal mildness. A cooling breeze infused heavenly delight. They dived into the vast ocean of emptiness, all delightful and pleasant. It gave them a delight far greater in its purity than what is derived from the company of the virtuous. They wandered about on all sides of heaven, under the beams of the full moon shining above them. They lingered under the clear vault of clouds, covering the mountain tops of Mavor, as if under the dome of a huge, whitewashed building. They roved by the regions of spiritual masters, siddhas, adepts, and male nature spirits, Gandharvas. They breathed the charming fragrance of mandara garlands, and passing the lunar sphere, they inhaled the sweet scent exhaled by the breeze from that nectar-like lunar orb. Tired and perspiring profusely, they bathed in the lakes of showering clouds, filled with the blushing lotuses of lurid lightning flashing within them. They freely strolled at random on all sides, and alighted on the tops of mountains like fluttering bees, appearing like filaments of the lotus viper below. They roved under the vaults of some cloud fragrance, scattered by the winds, and raining like the cascade of the Ganges River, thinking them as shower bathhouses in the air. Then, failing in their strength, they paused in many places with slow and slackened steps. They saw emptiness full of great and wonderful works. They saw what they had never seen before, the tremendous depth of the void that was not filled up by the myriads of worlds which kept revolving in it. Over and higher and higher, they saw the celestial spheres filled with luminous orbs, adorned with their ornamental stars, wandering one above and around the other. Huge mountainous bodies like Mount Mavor moved about in empty space and emitted a reddish glare on all sides, like a flame of fire from within their bowels. There were beautiful tablelands, like those of the Himalayas, with their pearly peaks of snow. There were mountains of gold spreading a golden color over the land. In one place they saw mountains of emerald, tinting the landscape with a lush green like a field of fresh grass. In other places they saw some dark cloud dimming the sight of the spectator and hiding the spectacle in dark blackness. They saw also tracts of blue sapphire with vines of parijata flowers, blooming like banners in the blue sky. They saw the minds of spiritual masters, siddhas, in their flight, faster than the swift winds. They heard the vocal music of the songs of heavenly nymphs in their aerial abodes. All the great bodies in the universe, the planetary system, were in continual motion. Spirits of the gods and demigods moved about unseen by one another. Groups of spiritual beings, the Kushmandas, the Rakshasas, and the Pikashas, were seated in aerial circles at the borders. Winds and gales blew with full force at their ethereal course. In some places they heard clouds roaring loudly, like the rumbling wheels of heavenly cars, and the noise of rapid stars resembled the blowing of pneumatic engines. Half-burnt masters, having flown too close to the sun, were flying from their burning cars under the soling rays. Solar embers were flung afar by the breath of the nostrils of their horses. In some places they saw the rulers of men and lines of female nature spirits, apsaras, hurrying up and down the air. In others, they saw goddesses wandering amidst the smoky and fiery clouds in the firmament. Here they saw some sparks of light falling like the jewels of celestial nymphs in their hurried flight to their respective spheres. There they saw the light of spirits of lesser masters dwindling into darkness. Flakes of mist were falling off from the clouds as if by friction. From the bodies of turbulent spirits rushing up and down the skies, and shrouded mountain sides like sheets of cloth, groups of cloud fragments were flying about in the air in the shapes of crowns, owls, and vultures. They saw some monsters also, such as dakinis, heaving their heads in the form of huge surges in the cloudy ocean of the sky. There were bodies of yoginis too, their faces resembling those of dogs, ravens, asses, and camels, who are traversing the wide expanse of the heavens to no purpose. There were masters and nature spirits, sporting in pairs in the dark, smoky and ash-colored clouds that spread the four quarters of the skies. They saw the planets, the path of the planets, the zodiac, resounding loudly with heavenly music of the spheres. They also saw the path of the lunar mansions that constantly marked the course of the two fortnights. They saw the sons of God moving about in the air, and they viewed with wonder the celestial Ganges, the Milky Way, studded with stars and rolling with the speed of winds. They saw gods wielding their thunderbolts, discuses, tridents, swords, and missiles. They heard Narada and Tumburu singing in their aerial abodes on high. They saw the region of the clouds, where there were huge bodies of clouds, mute as paintings and pouring forth floods of rain, as in the great deluge. In one place, they saw a dark cloud, as high as the mountain king Himalaya, slowly moving in the air, and at others, clouds of a golden color, like the setting sun. In one place, there were flimsy sheets of clouds, as are said to hover on the petals of the Risha range, and at another, a cloud like the calm blue bed of the sea. Tufts of grass were seen in some places, as if blown up by winds and floating in the stream of air. In other places, swarms of butterflies with glossy coats and wings were seen. In some places, there was a cloud of dust raised by wind, appearing like a lake on the top of the mountain. The Matris were seen in one place, dancing naked in giddy circles, and in another, great yoginis said as if forever giddy with intoxication. In one place, there were circles of holy men sitting in their calm meditation, and in others, pious saints who were cast away their worldly cares. There was a conclave of celestial singers, composed of heavenly nymphs, Kinnaras, and Gandharvas in one place, and some quiet towns and cities situated at others. There were cities of Brahma and Rudra, full with their people, and the city of illusion, Maya, with its increasing population. There were crystal lakes in some places, and stagnant pools at others, and lakes with masters seated by them, and others hugged by the rising moon. They saw the sun rising in one part and the darkness of night veiling the others, the evening casting its shadows on one, and the dusky mists of dusk obscuring the other. There were hoary clouds of winter in some places, and those of rain in others. Somewhere there appeared as tracts of land, and at another as a sheet of water. Bodies of gods and demigods wandered from one side to the other, some from east to west, and others from north to south. There were mountains, heaving their heads thousands of miles high, and there were valleys and eaves covered in eternal darkness. In one place there was a vast, inextinguishable fire, like that of the blazing sun, and in another, a thick frost covering the moonlight. Somewhere there was a great city flourishing with groves and trees, and another big temples of gods leveled to the ground by the might of demons. In some place there was a streak of light from a falling meteor in the sky. In another, the blaze of a comet with its 1,000 fiery tails in the sky. In one place, there was a lucky planet rising in view with its full orb. In another, there spread the gloom of night and full sunshine in another. Here the clouds were roaring, and there they were dumb and mute. Here were the high blasts driving the clouds in air, and there the gentle breeze dropping clusters of flowers on the ground. Sometimes the sky was clear and fair, without a cloud in it, as transparent as the soul of a wise man, delighted with the knowledge of truth. The empty region of the celestial gods was so full with the dewy beams of the silvery moon that it appeared like a shower of rain and raised the loud croaking of the frogs below. Flocks of peacocks and goldfinches, fluttering about in one place, and vehicles of the goddesses and celestial girls, Vidyadharis, thronged in another. A number of peacocks of Kartikeya, Subramanian, were seen dancing amidst the clouds, and a flight of greenish parrots was seen in the sky, appearing as a green plain. Dwarfish clouds were moving like the stout buffaloes of Yama, and others, in the form of horses, were grazing on the grassy meadows of clouds. Cities of the gods and demons appeared with their towers on high. Distinct towns and hills were seen separated by distance, as if detached from one another by driving winds. In some place, gigantic Bhairavas were dancing with their mountainous bodies, and in another, great Garudas were flying like winged mountains in the air. Huge mountains were tossed about by the blowing of winds, and the castles of the nature spirits, Gandharvas, were rising and falling with the celestial nymphs in them. There were some clouds rising on high, and some appearing like rolling mountains in the sky that were crushing forests below. In one spot, the sky appeared like a clear lake, abounding in lotuses. Moonbeams shone brightly in one spot, and sweet, cooling breezes blew softly in another. Hot, sultry winds were blowing in some place, singeing the forest on mountainous clouds.